Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. California, a much warmer state and much more beautiful, if I may add that. I rise today to recognize National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. After 17 and a half years as a 911 dispatcher, I know firsthand the challenges our public safety dispatchers face, the stress that they are put under, and the critical importance of their work. This is why I was proud to introduce a resolution commemorating National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. I remember working the graveyard shift at the LAPD, sitting 4 floors below ground, taking calls from people from all walks of life, often during their most vulnerable time in their lives. In fact, it was my work as a 911 dispatcher that got me involved in politics. When I was working for LAPD, I took a call from a little girl who ended up being murdered at the hands of her uncle. When I answered that 911 call, all I could hear was thumping. Later, I learned that that thumping noise was her head being bashed against the wall. Soon after, 5 shots were fired, and she was murdered. 11 years old, murdered at the hands of her uncle. I want to introduce my colleague, Tony Cardenas, from San Fernando Valley, Congressional District 29, to share with us some information about how he supports 911 dispatchers in his district.
Thank you very much to my colleague Norma Torres. Thank you for bringing up this very, very important opportunity for awareness on the House of Congress floor. Yes, it's National Public Safety Communicators Week, but it's really important for us to understand that in America, everything starts with us, the individual. And I just want to add to this dialogue that it's up to all of us to keep our communities safe. And if we do that well, maybe we won't need so many 911 operators, because as we've heard so many times and too often, those frantic calls in a situation where someone is calling 911 because the action has already started, the atrocity has already begun to occur. But as Americans, we should be vigilant and understand that we all have a collective responsibility to be the safekeepers of our community so that we can make sure that we minimize the amount of 911 calls that any one individual in our neighborhoods or our communities across America would ever have to make. I'd like to take the opportunity to mention someone, Crystal Blackburn, Assistant Supervisor at Hordsburg Police Department. And she's been a 911 operator for some time now, and I'd just like to quote one portion of what she mentioned on the House floor this afternoon. 911 has changed my life. It has shaped me. I have grown into a role that I wasn't even sure I wanted in the beginning. It has become a way of life that I wouldn't change for any reason. I am 911. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important for us to take the opportunity to recognize and appreciate the eclectic responsibility of friends and neighbors that we have in every community across America, in every situation that people take on that professionalism to be the solution, to be the go-to person when we need them most. It's important for people to understand that our dispatchers in 911 and our safety community around America deserves our support, they deserve our recognition, and more importantly, they deserve our thanks. Thank you so much for giving me the time to express my thoughts on this very important issue.
Thank you, Congressman Cardenas. So few people know what it's like to be an emergency dispatcher and don't truly understand how crucial our role is. They don't get that without us. They don't get that without you. First responders wouldn't be able to do their job without someone answering that 911 call. Back when I served in the California State Assembly, the state budget crisis meant that 911 dispatchers were furloughed because they weren't exempt as public safety professionals. Hundreds of calls went unanswered. Who knows how many lives were put at risk? I spent months badgering Governor Schwarzenegger until he realized the catastrophic effect that policy was having on our state. God forbid there had been an event like San Bernardino during that time, and calls couldn't get through, or first responders didn't know where to go. Sadly, too many people think of dispatchers as little more than glorified receptionists. This means that they don't often get the resources, the training, and support they need and deserve to do their jobs. Dispatchers are the first point of contact in the event of an emergency, and they are the sole link between those in trouble and the personnel who can help them. Better training and more support will go a long way toward improving service and increasing staff retention. During this year's State of the Union, I had the honor of inviting as my guest the dispatch supervisor who directed radio and call traffic during the San Bernardino attack. While the police, fire, and EMS responders definitely deserve a lot of credit, there had been very little mention in the media about the key role the public safety telecommunicators played. Anne Marie Teal and her team were the ones behind the scene, making sure first responders were deployed efficiently and effectively. They fielded calls from the community, from law enforcement agencies, and from callers from all over the country and the world. During a situation that can quickly become pure chaos, they stayed calm, they took action, and helped save lives. When she was here, Anne Marie discussed training that she had received in dealing with these types of situations, and how grateful that she was for that training. Unfortunately, this kind of training isn't a regular occurrence. Without public safety telecommunicators, our first responders can't do their jobs. The response of police, firefighters, and paramedics is dependent on the quality and accuracy of the information the dispatcher is able to provide. Public safety telecommunicators don't just take calls and relay information. They also play a key role in coordinating multiple teams of first responders from multiple agencies during times of crisis. They are a vital link for police, fire, and EMS by monitoring their activities by radio and providing them with information that can ensure their safety and an efficient, effective response. 911 dispatchers have also helped in apprehension of criminals and help bring them to justice, because in many cases, they are witnesses to the crimes that occur. In the case that I stated earlier, I was the only witness. It was that recorded call that brought justice to that little girl. Public Safety Telecommunicators Week not only provides us with the opportunity to recognize the hard work of our dispatchers, but also is a reminder to our constituents that the importance of maintaining emergency lines free for just that, emergencies. There is no excuse for 911 abuse. Some estimates indicate that 15 to 20% of incoming calls are non-emergencies. These calls could prevent legitimate calls, emergency calls, from coming through and being answered. For example, as a 911 dispatcher, I remember receiving calls from callers that were asking for directions to Disneyland, asking if an earthquake had just occurred, or asking for the time of day. That is not an emergency. Dispatchers can't send for assistance if they never received the call. 911 is not an information line. Local governments have limited resources and few dispatchers. Many localities have info lines, for example, 311 or 511. But I encourage individuals to look up their local police departments and have their non-emergency police numbers on hand. I would also encourage them to add that information to their cell phones so that the number is readily available when they have an emergency. I can give you many examples of when people have dialed 911 from a cell phone and the dispatcher does not have the accurate location. Imagine if you are in the middle of having a heart attack and you are not able to voice your location. Having that local information telephone number is important because your call will be expedited to the local paramedic or to the local police department that has jurisdiction of where you may be. It is never too early to teach the kids about the proper uses of 911. You never know when an emergency will happen, and your child may be the only one able to get help. Teach them how to dial the number and stay on the line, and when they should and shouldn't dial 911. One bad example, my children were looking for me. They knew at the time that I worked at the 911 center. They dialed 911 and asked for their mom. That is not a true good 911 call. So discourage your children from making inquiries to that emergency line. Every day, public safety dispatchers help save lives, provide comfort and reassurance, and are a critical part of our law enforcement teams. But too often, their work goes unrecognized. When you need a calming voice to guide you through crisis, when law enforcement, fire safety, and rescue personnel are in need of seamless coordination at a moment's notice, when every second counts, they are on the other line. 911 dispatchers are the unsung heroes of the first responder community. I want to share with you another story of a 911 dispatcher. I had to make sacrifices. I had to make sacrifices as a soldier to serve my country, and I have to make sacrifices as a dispatcher to serve my community. I knew this when I chose this profession. I have to be on call. We have to work overtime. We have to work holidays. We have to work nights. We have to work weekends. And we have to be reachable 24/7, and it's tough. I spent most of my life in the service of others, 22 years in the military, 8 years in the Texas Youth Commission, and 2 years in Iraq, assisting military forces, and nearly 8 years as a 911 dispatcher. I can't remember how many lives events I have not been a part of because I was working, sacrificing in order to help others. It is only tolerable and manageable with the assistance of my fellow team, family members helping me when I just couldn't get through it without their help. We have committed ourselves to this calling, and we are very good at it. We have sacrificed ourselves in the service of others because someone had to do it. This comes from Richard Dullen, Coleman Police Department. The first thing he said as I answered the phone was, "I just shot myself in the heart." Given that he was still speaking, I figured he probably didn't hit his heart. But the point was pretty clear. I established that he had, in fact, shot himself in the chest about 30 minutes before dialing 911. He waited to call because he was not sure if he wanted to live. Unfortunately, we don't tend to get a lot of closure. So I have no idea if he lived or died. Kyle, from Kitsap County, Washington. The stories go on, and I could go on and on for the rest of the time sharing with you about the wonderful work that these committed people do each and every single day for our communities. I want to end, Mr. Speaker, by thanking the 911 dispatchers and by recognizing the hard work that they provide in our communities each and every single day. I yield back, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.